All right, let me do a quick check-in. Try and do a quick check-in for Dual Citizens by Alex Olin, a Canadian author with actually, I think maybe he has dual citizenship. This is a story of Lark, um, who is with she's she has we get to meet her as a kid to start off with her mother Marianne, who is a very distant, very negligent mother who seems to kind of view her children as a burden, very kind of cold in her way, um, someone who's very kind of negligent. Um, Lark is a kind of result of the first marriage that ends. They has an, she has another husband, and she gives birth to Robin, Lark's sister, and indeed Lark ends up basically kind of taking care of her sister Robin, because Marianne is very much like, oh, you know, that husband goes. She has various other things. She's kind of a mean woman, um, just interested in her own stuff. Lark basically becomes kind of the mother of the thing. As they grow up, Robin has a musical talent, and Lark Lark seems to gets her kind of with the kind of a music teacher who kind of gets her going that way. Lark um, gets, as we go along, Lark becomes gets really interested in editing. Indeed, goes off to college, like is basically has to do her own stuff, gets her own kind of scholarship, nothing to do with Marianne, and goes off to a college to kind of learns to film school to a film school, um, and Robin ends up coming down and living with her as well, because one of Marianne's boyfriend is being very creepy, dressing her, finds him sitting in her room watching her sleep. It's like, okay, she 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 steals money from the money that's kind of stored in the house, buys a ticket to the United States where Lark is, and going to college, and they move in with each other. They basically get jobs together. Um, we get sections in here before that happens where Lark has a relationship with, is it Gordon, who seems to be somebody who has a somewhat of a mental breakdown. He goes off into the woods, kind of a Thoreau kind of, oh, I'm going to be self-sufficient in the woods, but through his bizarre letters, which become more and more sexual, and then he's like, I'm going to be Dionysian, and you think, wow, this guy's having a complete mental breakdown, and then he just breaks up with her, and it really, really hurts Lark. Though it seems like it was probably for the best. Um, and so they work at a group home for like teens, where Robin kind of develops a relationship with Bernard, this 15-year-old kid, but she's like also like just basically a high school kid too, so it's okay that way, I guess. But Bernard decides he's going to go back to his mother, and they're like, why would you go back to your mother? They're people who they definitely kind of divorced themselves from their mother, because she was bad for her, and they can't believe he's going back to like drug addicted mother. um but he does. She Lark introduces Robin to the kind of the big kind of music professor there. Indeed, gives using her puts her under her name to take music classes. Gets more and more up. Ends up getting, with the help of this music professor, getting sent to Juilliard, where they say, "Oh, you're too mannered. You've got too much thing. You must be an empty vessel," which is just like really kind of sick, gross stuff. But and she actually, through kind of a thing of the professor saying, like, you're disappointing me. You're embarrassing me. You think you're so special, but you're not. Um, and so she kind of goes, okay, fine, and she completely subjugates herself, completely breaks, unlearns all her habits, all of her personality, becomes a robot, in the singing. There is one part where they just have her playing and just the kind of screwed up intensity of her face, and it was like Lark says, "Wow, it's shocking. It's like I discovered my sister was like a nun married to God." Just like that kind of intensity, which is like that was a really a great image that it's like a nun married to God. It's like great. Um, all this time, Lark, who calls herself ordinary, is doing all these kind of experimental films, very much into the editing. She actually meets through the classes a documentary guy who is extremely kind of also formalist, I would say, very abstract, very kind of cut, very like making slight editing choices. She goes off to, I think it's Pennsylvania, where his farmhouse is, where he does his editing, and he finally does let her into her editing suite and helps her, like shows him two shots, and like they have hours and hours of conversation about that. And like it's cool because it's not like one of these sexual relationships. He actually kind of hooks up with some guy who is like the local drug dealers who goes to college, and it's like, where? Well, somewhere. And it turns out at the end of the thing, it's like, oh, he's actually going to MIT, but he likes being just kind of the local the local drug dealer when he's at home. It's very relaxing to him. Um, and she films her own kind of films, and the delightful thing where she shows this kind of the great documentary, and like these her 26 minutes of like stuff, and they sit there in the silence, and you know he doesn't actually tear her down. He just has silence, which is it's actually, she says, she finds actually a very kind thing to do. It's like he doesn't tear her down, but he doesn't, which, so it's like there's something worthy there, but but so his silence was actually that was great for me. I was that cheap of a date, I guess, that it would be that it would be there. She comes back from Pennsylvania, and she finds that Robin has rehooked up with Bernard. She has been, I think she has been a lesbian or had relationships with women before then, but now she's kind of hooking up with this guy who she says she finds very relaxing because she's she has a very hard time focusing in a way. She said, she tells Lark, well, you can be in like an editing suite for hours and hours, and that's cool with you, but I can't do that. And I find that Bernard relaxes me. Well, it's like, well, it's because he's a pot dealer. And it's like, well, not just that. Maybe it's the pot, but maybe it's also just there's something calming in his personality, though we'll see, because there's definitely been troubles with the male characters in this book. You get the sense that it's kind of it's the girls against this world of rather fucked up men. Um, though the documentary and so far has been pretty cool, has been helpful, has been actually a good kind of like mentor figure, which I've appreciated, which you appreciate. So it's like it's not cut these things black and white. I mean, we've actually had difficulties with Marianne, the mother, and they had a roommate who was very kind of controlling and stupid and kind of like that. But then her cat died while she was away, and Robin, who just arrived, actually does this wonderful cat funeral for her, which actually kind of releases a lot of that anger, which is great. And then she's like, oh, and that seems to release her, and then she goes off and becomes a cheesemaker, which seems to kind of like, ah, it's a lot easier for her. And in through this, we have Marianne showing up and saying, oh, you've been you guys have been a burden to me, you've been words like, and she a Lark, maybe because of the weakness of Robin, just says like, you've never been a mother to us. You've done nothing to us. We've done all this despite you. She is graduating from college. Robin is graduating from high school, and it's like it's been for nothing of you. And now, yeah, now is going to Juilliard, with whatever, with however that goes. You almost think she should become a rock star or something like that instead. And And Lark is becoming kind of like a really interesting kind of filmmaker, editor filmmaker. Whether that's, she'll be able to actually make a living at that, we'll see. She might end up, what happens to people who, after they do all the great kind of film school stuff, is they become an editor on a reality show or something like that. I guess we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so that is the first 28 tracks, chapter 25 or 26 of Dual Citizens by Alex Olin, and it's just a really good pacey book. I'm enjoying the writing. I'm enjoying the voice of Lark, who's just kind of very click, 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 click along. Well edited, probably. Very well edited. Clear, not fussy, not, oh, look at me writing, but still with like striking little kind of images there that I'm enjoying. So I will stop there.